Welcome to the Ben Wiersma Show, where we dive into the topic around diversity, equity, and inclusion within the restaurant industry. I'm your host, Ben Wiersma, and I'm thrilled to be here with you today. And I'm thrilled to be here to share the story of our amazing guest. On today's show, we're going to learn about an organization and its co-founder. And as they share their story of working to support mental health, substance, and education within the restaurant industry. Roll the intro. Oh, no intro. There we go. So I'm excited to introduce Hassel Aviles. Hassel is a hospitality and culinary consultant. She's a visionary and serial entrepreneur. I love that title, by the way, serial entrepreneur, and a mental health advocate as well. So Hassel's strategic planning abilities helped grow Not 9 to 5 from a series of workshops, panels, and webinars into a global vehicle for change. And now with Connecting, Not 9 to 5's online education platform, Hassel aspires to start a worldwide hospitality revolution to create work environments that are inclusive and proactive rather than top-down and reactive. So welcome to the Ben Show, Hassel.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah. So, Hassel, I'm excited to have you on the show because, we see a lot in terms of media and just out in the world right now. We're hearing the conversation of, things like the Great Resignation and the shifting job market. And I think a lot of that has to do with just kind of the environment that we work in the restaurant industry, as well as those challenges in mental health. I'd love to get your thoughts on that just right off the bat.
I love it. It's a very hot topic right now. There's a lot of media coverage on the Great Resignation, staffing crisis. There's, been a lot of talk of calling it the labor shortage. And I put that in quotes because I genuinely believe that it's not a shortage of labor. It's a shortage of workplaces that offer physical and psychological safety, that offer support and resources, that offer adequate compensation, and benefits and such. It's really about the workplace. And what we're seeing is centuries of neglect, right, around workplace mental health support, around workplaces that offer, like I said, the physical and psychological safety. And in terms of the Great Resignation, there's also now a lot of research and data being done to try to figure out what the implication of this is going to be and how we can move away to start retaining and attracting talent. Some of the best research I've read so far has been by Charlie and Donald Sull. They wrote an article in MIT recently, a couple months ago, about how toxic work cultures are actually driving the Great Resignation. And what's really exciting about this research is that they're defining toxic work culture for the first time. And they're basing it on 5 factors. So the first one is non-inclusive, so the name of the show and the topic of the show could not be more relevant to create, change in the industry. When you see certain inequity around diversity of folks, diversity of thought, and the lack of inclusion, I'm so sorry, that is where you're seeing a lot of toxicity grow. The other points are disrespect, unethical behavior, cutthroat environment, and abusive. And unfortunately, these are things that we've seen in the hospitality industry normalized and actually oftentimes encouraged. When you think about Gordon Ramsay and his shows and, his influence on all of that. But it's really exciting to see now that we're acknowledging this. And also another point that came of that study was that toxic culture is actually 10 times more powerful than compensation in predicting a company's turnover rate and attrition. So I think, we don't really have a choice anymore in terms of addressing, these topics.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, a lot of the thought is, it's pay, right? People are leaving or they're changing jobs to gain a bump in pay. And what that research is saying that it's not only that, right? There's, we're all advocating for higher wages within the industry, but yes, it really is other factors that are playing into this labor shortage and this shift in the market for sure. So I appreciate you filling us in on that. I think it's fascinating research. So I want to learn more about Not 9 to 5 and the work that you do there. And so maybe for anyone that's tuning into the show and hasn't heard about Not 9 to 5, maybe just run us through that.
Absolutely. Thank you. Oh, and I see our website is shared. Please visit our website. We're a nonprofit global leader in mental health advocacy, and we focus specifically on the food service and hospitality sector. I think this is a really important differentiator for us. A lot of mental health organizations exist in the world, obviously, but our industry is unique, and that means that we need unique solutions in order to address the change we want to see. And what I found, like, I grew up in the industry. So my first job, this is like over 20 years ago, I was 17 years old, and I didn't find that I was working in a very supportive industry. I worked at many restaurants. I even owned one at one point. But in working my way up through the industry, I just saw a lot of neglect for mental health conversations. I found a lot of lack of inclusion. I found a lot of really harmful behavior that was being normalized and encouraged, like especially around substance use. And so over time, this all had an impact, obviously, on my own body and mind. But I started to tell my story and found that the response was just so incredible. I started really openly talking about my own mental illness, my own substance use challenges without any shame or stigma. And the beautiful thing about vulnerability is that it's contagious. So the more that I would do it, the more that we would hear, this demand for more conversation. We started this work about 4 years ago, but we only incorporated it as a nonprofit 2 years ago. And for the last year and a half, I've been running it on my own. I used to have a co-founder. Now I do it myself with my team. And it's been incredible because although the pandemic has been absolutely horrifying and so harmful in so many ways, one thing that has come out of this, which has been incredible for our industry, is that these conversations are becoming more, frequent. And there's a lot of work being done to really nurture the change that folks are demanding.
Yeah, before the show we spoke just quickly there, but I read an article even this morning that was talking about restaurants looking at how many days a week they're open in order to support work-life balance for their staff, as well as conversations around mental health, right? And I think it's an interesting take. Not everyone's going to all of a sudden be a 5-day a week on a restaurant, but maybe thinking about it, maybe there are days of the week where some change could happen, right? To alleviate that stress and allow that kind of work-life balance more within the industry. So
absolutely. I love that you read that article, and I keep hearing all these different innovative, creative ways in which employers are figuring this out.
Yeah.
Some do 4-day work weeks, some change their hours, some are starting to change which locations they open when, because they have no choice, first of all. But second of all, they're trying to also have more compassion for the staff that they do still have. Yes. Because what's happened, unfortunately, is that so oftentimes your role ends up changing because there just aren't enough staff. And,
right.
You also need to be cautious of that because you don't want to contribute to burnout either. So it's really cool to see how employers are having to address all of this.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And, it contributes to that better guest experience, right? If staff isn't burned out and they're not stressed, maybe they're, we've all been in a restaurant before where we can see that staff is kind of tuned out, right? They're kind of checked out, right? And I think that could contribute to a solution, right? Not the whole thing, but could help for sure. So I wanted to ask you about kind of the brigade system and just how kitchens have kind of evolved around this concept. When I first started in the restaurant industry, I found it fascinating, right? Just the history and everything about it. It was kind of exciting, but I think I'd love to get your thoughts on it and maybe how it needs to evolve.
Sure, that would be my pleasure. I mean, it is a controversial topic. I always get a little bit of pushback on this, especially from chefs that have grown up using the brigade system as their only system. So to start off, if anyone's listening and doesn't really know what we're talking about, the purpose and design of the kitchen brigade system was to ensure that everyone has a clear purpose in the kitchen and can work to maximum efficiency. So the real key word there is efficiency. The whole priority of the brigade system is efficiency. And listen, it sounds like a great idea on paper, but in reality, it creates a work environment that leaves very little room for humanity and emotions and the spectrum of mental health experiences that we all, have. Um, it's from the late 19th century. So I think it's really important to highlight that because we are no longer living in the early 19th century. And the same way that we, upgrade software on our laptops all the time, we need to upgrade this industry with a new system that has the ability to actually support the people that work within it. So what I mean by that is that there needs to be more focus on the people that are working. At the end of the day, people are our biggest asset in any business, right? If you have the nicest kitchen, the coolest restaurant, the best ingredients, and no one shows up to work, you don't have a business model. So people are your biggest asset. There needs to be that emphasis brought back on the people, not so much on the efficiency. I'm not saying that obviously having a scalable, profitable business isn't important. When you're in a service, I used to work services. When you're in a service, the point is to keep your business going and to maximize, the guest experience and make, the money you need to make. But that doesn't mean that we have to neglect, the human experience of people that are working for us. I think there could be a way to evolve the brigade system. I don't believe that you ever do things cold turkey. I think it's important to take time to tweak things over time. But I think there needs to be an acknowledgement that we need to work away from that because especially right now when we have, we're in year 3 of the global pandemic. And so that has had an impact on everyone. There's no one that's unaffected by that. And if we're only focusing on efficiency, then we're neglecting, what people are actually experiencing. The other problem I have with the brigade system is that there's this idea that there's a chain of command, right? So the person at the top is the one who sets the tone for everyone underneath, and that the person at the top has the best ideas, has all the decision-making, power. The problem with that is that someone at the bottom of the brigade system, like a dishwasher or entry-level cook, that they don't have the competence, to be able to be involved in ideas, decision-making, or that they deserve less respect than someone else who's further up in the hierarchy. That doesn't create a very inclusive environment. And unfortunately also does not create a psychologically safe environment. So I think it's important to challenge this system. I think it's important to acknowledge, that yes, it's gotten us this far. And I'm not saying that you can't have a hierarchy in your business. 90% of businesses have a hierarchy. But I do think it's important to start to learn about what psychological safety is. How can you foster that in your workplace? And, how can we support people's human experience without asking them to repress and suppress it when they come into the workplace?
Absolutely. And, when you think of just because it's something we've done for so long, doesn't necessarily mean it's something we have to do ongoing, right? And even just looking at how can you change, the structure of how that system is that's in place. I think that's what, this, like you said, this global pandemic has really taught us is, anything can really change, and we have to be able to adapt to these changes that are coming, because I think that is really going to be the future that we live in, whether it's, pandemics or climate change or social change. We have to be able to adapt to these things. And, if we're kind of stuck in our ways, I don't see the industry progressing really as fast as it needs to.
Exactly. So I just want to highlight 4 things that you could do today to start to evolve the brigade system. One way is accepting the insight and opinions of everyone at all levels. So that doesn't matter what role you play in the business, if it's your first day or you've been there for 10 years. Number two is creating, allowing for people to create new ideas. And that relieves pressure from the top. So that's another thing that never gets talked about, is that leaders are under so much pressure right now to hold so much. And if you're a chef or you own the place, this is a way to get new ideas and to seek input from other people on your team and not feel like you have to decide everything or you have to do everything. The third is inviting that input, right? And fostering psychological safety. And the fourth is redesigning the workplace so that it is more inclusive for all voices and bodies.
Absolutely, yeah. It's fantastic and extremely helpful, kind of guidance. I appreciate that. So, so connecting. So I know this is a big part of what you're doing at 9 to 5. Maybe let's just kind of step back and just explain, what is connecting. I know I've signed up for it. I've been on there and perusing around, and it's fantastic. So to learn more about it.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think for me, when I first like to explain connecting, I like to, so the name, let's start with the name. It's called Connecting. It's CNECTING. Obviously, I know that's not how you spell connecting. We used it as an acronym for change needs everyone coming together. And we really wanted to emphasize that for everyone, because there's a couple of reasons. One is there needs to be systemic change in the industry. And that means that we all play a role in that. So all of us are complicit in the way, in how we got here. And all of us are part of moving forward in a different direction. I think oftentimes what I kept seeing was that folks were studying or training, being offered all these certain things only at a certain level in the business. So for example, only managers were getting trained, right? And not the rest of the staff, or only the owner, was learning about certain things, or the opposite. I've seen restaurants where only the employees are going through all these different trainings, but the management and leadership team is left out of this stuff because it's assumed that they already know, right? That we're good. And so we really wanted to emphasize the fact that this is for everyone, because workplace mental health has been neglected for centuries. Everyone needs to get on the same page. And all of us are in different stages of the learning journey when it comes to workplace mental health, right? Some of us know a lot about this topic, and some of us don't know anything and are like, what's psychological safety? I don't know what she's talking about. So I really think it's important to emphasize that connecting is for everyone. So whether you, again, like I said, you're in a leadership position or you are a culinary student and haven't even entered the workforce yet, this is a tool, this is a place that you can join to get access to a lot of resources, tools, and skills that you'll need in the workplace. Because the other thing that I've learned through obviously working in this industry for 20 years, but also the research and data show us, is that it's not an if you will be exposed to mental health challenges and substance use challenges in the workplace, it's a when. When we started doing the research 2 or 3 years ago, one of the biggest data points that came out of it was that when we asked our community all over North America, all over Europe, our audience is broad now, is, do you live and work with mental health and substance use challenges? 90% of people say yes. So it's not some of us, it's most of us. So that's why I say it's an if, not a when. It's not an if, it's a when. And I think it's important to better equip our workforce, right? So that we can better manage whatever comes up. You can join for free. Anyone can join Connecting for free. There's incredible 30-page guidebook for workplace mental health that you can download if you own a restaurant or own a bar and you don't know where to start. It has a great self-audit tool on, it asks you what you're currently doing, and then it gives you a great starting point of where to start. But then the most exciting product that we've come out with as well is Connected, which is a certification program. And the difference between that and the other tools on there are that it actually assesses your learning. So oftentimes, we have to do health and safety, certifications. We have to do alcohol safety certifications and trainings. This is the same idea, except that it's around the topic of workplace mental health. And the most exciting thing for me about it is that it's industry specific, and that it's based on research and data. We've worked with incredible, mental health professionals, but more importantly, we've worked with industry leaders. There's a lot of video interviews, there's a lot of audio stories on there from, real hospitality professionals. And it's based on the 5 primary concerns of the industry. So there's specific topics that we cover because in all of our research and data, these are the same ones that kept coming up. So yeah, that's a little bit about connecting. It's available now. We launched it about a month or bit ago. And so far it's been great because we've had restaurant companies and businesses, tourism boards, all over North America getting their staff to go through it. Some of them are buying, 50 at a time or 100 at a time. Some of them are doing it in phases where they'll start with, a third of their business and then they kind of go through. But it's online, so it's completely accessible for everyone.
It's fantastic. Yeah, I've dived into it, like I said, and the platform itself is just really well laid out. And like you said, the guide is fantastic. So I encourage anyone watching the show to pause for a second after and go have a look at it. It even links through from the 9 to 5 website. So, thank you for sharing that. I think it's it's a very poignant message that you bring, and it's I'm thankful for the work that you're doing. So, Hassel, I always ask my guests this question, and I think we may have answered it in the beginning here, but I want to know what you're most excited about for the restaurant industry itself.
Oh, that's a great question. I think for me, the most exciting part right now is just to see the long-awaited change. I've grown up in this industry. It's been 20 plus years, and I'm just so grateful that I get to see this in my lifetime. I'm obviously not very excited about what it took to get here, and I think that there's a lot of harm that's been caused that needs to be acknowledged. And as an industry, we need to hold ourselves accountable on. But as that's all happening, it's really exciting to see us open and, start to thrive. Obviously, it's going to take a lot longer for some than others. I know in some places, certain things are up and running and have been for a long time. In other places in the world, this has been a slow and steady, excruciating process. But regardless, everywhere I've gone and everywhere, that I've kind of been exposed to and had the pleasure of learning about, there is so much change happening, and we're starting to reimagine the industry. We're starting to rebuild the industry. And it's so incredible. I've been doing a lot of work with the James Beard Foundation and, lately, and it's so incredible to see, for example, to use them as an example, an organization like that's actually starting to really address topics that have been neglected for so long. And listen, they know that there's no perfect way to do this. They make mistakes. And I see this with restaurant owners too. It's just people are trying, they're taking risks, they're being vulnerable, they're learning how to give and receive feedback without negative consequences. And all of this is psychological safety, right? So even if you don't use the term, we're actually starting to see it in practice. And that makes me really excited for the restaurant industry, because I think our industry is one of the most incredible industry in terms of the people it attracts. We have such high levels of emotional intelligence because of the amount of emotional labor we do. And we have such an incredible talent force. Chefs at the end of the day are culinary artists. It's a culinary art. And really, I'm really excited to also see us move away from the rock star chef stuff that was happening a couple of years ago, and take ourselves more seriously and see chefs, take on their health as a priority, treating almost their craft like any professional would, like an athlete would. So anyways, that's all what makes me really excited for the restaurant industry right now.
Yeah, no, that's it's a great answer. the industry's obviously gone through a lot of change, and it's always been that way, right? It's such a fast-paced, fast-moving, fast innovation type industry, and I agree with you. I think it's interesting to see how there really is this like reclaiming of the art form of what is done within the walls of a restaurant, and that's a big reason why I do this show is really to dive into what is that conversation around that diversity, that equity. And how do we make restaurants inclusive for, not only people that work there, but also the community that they're in, right, and around their business. And
I love
it's exciting to see how that. It's exciting to see how we both are excited about this change that's happening, within the restaurant industry. So, Hassel, it has been my absolute pleasure to have you on the show today, and to get your thoughts, around the work that you're doing and mental health and the industry at large. So I appreciate it a lot. Thank you very much.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Thank you for having me. And yeah, I'm sure I will talk to you soon.
Yeah, we'll chat soon. Well, everyone, that's a wrap of this episode of the Ben Wiersma Show on SVK. Thank you all for joining me, and thank you so much to Hassel Aviles for joining from about 9 to 5. I'm always excited to do this show and to learn more myself, as well as to help educate the industry on this topic of diversity, equity, and inclusion within the restaurant space. So I'm your host, Ben Wiersma, and remember, share food and care for one another.